greets me is heavy and sweet, clinging to my skin like warm velvet the moment the pressurized seal breaks. It is not just heat, but a living, breathing atmosphere, carrying the faint scent of rain on hot pavement and the distant, verdant aroma of jungle hills waiting in the dark. I do not need to see the skyline to know I have arrived. The atmosphere itself tells the story, wrapping around my shoulders and settling into my lungs with a slow, deliberate weight that instantly slows my pulse. There is a specific density to the tropical night here, a softness that blurs the sharp edges of travel and invites a long, deep exhale. I move from the suspended tunnel of the jet bridge into the wide, open expanse of the terminal. The light here is different, cooler and more fluorescent, reflecting off polished surfaces that stretch out into the distance. My bag is heavy in my hand, a solid anchor that keeps me grounded as I navigate the long corridors. Here begins the rhythm of the arrival, a steady, hypnotic cadence that requires no thought. The floor beneath my feet is a smooth expanse of terrazzo, cool and unyielding. The soles of my shoes meet the stone with a muted, rhythmic tapping. Tap, pause, tap, pause. It is a solitary sound, distinct against the low, ambient hum of the building's ventilation system. I let the sound guide me, a metronome for my tired steps. The corridor extends, a straight line of pale walls and glass. I switch hands, letting the weight of the suitcase travel from my right palm to my left. The handle is smooth, worn warm by my grip. The wheels hum against the hard floor, a continuous, low-frequency vibration that travels up through the handle and into my arm. It is a steady, reassuring sensation, a reminder of momentum. Ahead, the flooring changes. The hard terrazzo gives way to a section of short, tight-woven carpet. The transition is sudden but soft. The tapping of my shoes disappears, replaced by a dull, muffled thud. The vibration in the suitcase handle changes pitch, becoming deeper, softer, more resistant. I have to pull with slightly more intention now, feeling the friction of the wheels against the fabric. The silence of the carpet makes the space feel smaller, more intimate, as if the world has drawn in closer. I reach a moving walkway, a long ribbon of black rubber sliding effortlessly forward. I step onto it, feeling the slight lurch of acceleration, and then set the bag down. For a long moment, there is no effort. I stand still, letting the machine carry me. The handrail moves under my palm, a smooth loop of rubber that feels cool to the touch. Below, the metal grooves of the walkway verify their existence with a faint, rhythmic clicking. As they cycle underneath the floor plates at the end of the belt, it is a mechanical lullaby, a repetitive, unending loop of motion that allows my mind to drift. Stepping off requires a small surge of focus, and then I am back hard tile. The sound returns, the hollow echo of footsteps, the higher-pitched roll of the suitcase wheels. I pass rows of empty chairs, their final seats gleaming under the overhead lights. They sit in perfect, silent alignment, waiting for passengers who are not here. The rhythm of walking takes over completely now. One foot, then the other. The weight of the bag, the swing of my arm, the cool air brushing against my face. There is nothing to decide, nothing to solve. There is only the motion of moving forward through this quiet, climate-controlled valley. Eventually, the corridor widens, opening into the arrivals hall. I drift through the sliding glass doors, and the climate changes again. The cool, conditioned air dissolves, replaced instantly by the warm, humid embrace of the Chiang Mai night. A car is waiting. I slide into the backseat, the leather cool against my legs. The door closes, sealing out the humidity, leaving only the visual blur of the city passing by. Streetlights smear into streaks of amber and white against the window glass. We move through the night, the suspension of the car absorbing the texture of the road. I watch the shadows of trees flicker past, great dark shapes that hint at the old city walls and the moats that surround them. The engine is a low murmur, barely audible, a white noise that wraps me in a cocoon of transit. We stop. I do not register the details of the lobby or the stairs. I simply float through them, carried by the momentum of the journey's end. The room is a sanctuary of stillness. The air conditioning hums a steady, single note, a shield against the tropical heat outside. I leave the bag by the door. Its weight is finally gone from my hand. I do not unpack. I do not search for a view. I simply move toward the bed, the focal point of the dimly lit space. The sheets are cool, crisp cotton, stretched tight across the mattress. I sit on the edge, the mattress yielding gently under my weight. I swing my legs up, the fabric rustling softly, a sound like dry leaves. As I lie back, the pillow accepts my head, firm and cool. I let my limbs grow heavy, sinking into the support of the bed. The ceiling is a blank canvas in the shadows. My breath deepens, matching the slow, steady hum of the room. The journey is over. I am here. I close my eyes, and the world fades into a comfortable, heavy silence. The heat of the Thai afternoon remains outside the gate, held back by a thick perimeter of longan trees and bamboo. Here the air changes. It becomes heavy with the scent of damp moss and the sweet, decaying perfume of the jungle floor. I slip my sandals off at the entrance to the tunnels, placing them on the rack alongside a dozen other pairs. The stone beneath my bare feet is smooth, polished by decades of pilgrims and wanderers seeking the same silence I have come to find. Stepping across the threshold, the light drops away. The tunnel takes me in, the temperature plummets, a sudden and welcome embrace of cool air that feels filtered through layers of dense clay. It is quiet here. The ceiling arches low, forcing a posture of humility, a slight bow of the head to navigate the brick corridors. I move deeper into the subterranean maze. The walls are not uniform. They are a patchwork of restoration and decay, breathing out a scent of wet stone. I reach out to graze the surface with my fingertips. The texture is rough, porous, and remarkably cold. This is the earth-chilled brick I was looking for. It does not feel like construction material. It feels like the side of a living cave. My fingers trail along the masonry until the surface changes. The roughness gives way to a patch of plaster, soft as velvet against the skin. I lean in. The darkness softens as my eyes adjust, revealing the faint, ghostly pigment of the 14th century murals. Most of the art has faded into history, reclaimed by the humidity. But here, a fragment remains. It is a bird, a single forest bird painted in ochre and faded teal, its wings folded in rest. It sits on a painted branch that has long since vanished, suspended in the dark, waiting for someone to notice its vigil. Leaving the bird in its cool sanctuary, I follow the curve of the tunnel back toward the light. The exit is a circle of blinding green. Emerging from the earth feels like rising from deep water. The sounds of the forest rushing back to meet me. A path winds away from the tunnel mouth, disappearing into the trees. I let my breath sink with the slow, rhythmic sweep of the wind in the canopy. The ground here is uneven, a mixture of hard-packed red dirt and ancient paving stones that have been lifted and broken by the roots of massive bonsai trees. This is the rhythm of the grounds. One step, then another. The gravel shifts with a dry, hollow sound underfoot. A dry leaf spirals down from high above, landing on the path with a soft tick. I step over it. The forest is dense, a wall of emerald and jade that filters the sunlight into moving patterns on the ground. To my left, the Great Chedi rises, a massive bell-shaped stupa weathered to a deep stone gray. It sits heavy on the earth. Ferns sprout from its crevices, and moss paints the northern side in stripes of vivid green. There is no need to hurry. The path curves gently, guiding me past mounds of broken statues. Headless Buddhas and fragments of stone arms rest in piles, covered in dry leaves. They do not look sad. They look restful, returned to the elements. I pause to watch a rooster step high through the undergrowth, his feathers catching a shaft of sun. He scratches the earth, pauses, and moves on. I follow his lead. Step, breath, step. The air is humid but still. A squirrel chatters from a high branch, the sound sharp and brief, before silence washes back over the clearing. The walking becomes a meditation in itself, There is only the sensation of the ground pushing back against my feet, the smell of rain that hasn't fallen yet, and the visual tapestry of bark and leaf. The grand scale of the trees makes me feel small, weightless, just another moving part of the understory. I linger by a patch of sunlight, letting the warmth press against my shoulder, watching dust motes dance in the column of light. They swirl in slow, chaotic orbits, never landing, just drifting. The path eventually widens near the lake. Here, the trees are older, their trunks thick and gnarled. This is the grove of the talking trees. Wooden signs hang from the branches, swinging lazily in the breeze, painted with words of wisdom in Thai and English. I scan the grove, looking for the one that was promised. I see it near the water's edge. A massive tree, its bark almost entirely hidden by a cage of parasitic vines. The vines are silver gray, twisting around the trunk like veins of precious metal, holding the wood in a tight, ancient embrace. A wooden placard hangs from a lower branch, suspended by a rusted chain. It turns slowly, revealing the text. I steady the sign with a hand to read the 10-word promise, painted in white. Stand firm like the mountain. Let the wind pass through. I release the wood. It swings back, settling into its slow rotation. I find a stone bench facing the water and lower myself onto it. The lake is a mirror of the sky, broken only by the occasional ripple of a fish surfacing for air. From somewhere across the water, high up in the temple grounds, a bell begins to toll. It is not a sharp sound, but a deep, resonant hum that travels low across the surface of the lake. The vibration reaches me a second after the sound. I close my eyes, letting the resonance fill the space behind my eyelids. The mist has lifted, but the world remains soft, the edges blurred by the afternoon haze. I rest my hands on my lap, palms open, and listen as the final note of the bell stretches out, becoming thinner and thinner until it is indistinguishable from the silence. The air at the base of the mountain is heavy, holding the night's moisture close to the earth. It does not feel like walking through open space, but rather like entering a room where the walls are made of teak and bamboo, and the ceiling is a low, drifting layer of white cloud. The monk's trail is not a paved road. It is a ribbon of red clay and packed soil, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, winding upward into the green embrace of Doi Suthep. Strips of orange cloth, the color of a monk's robes, are tied around the trunks of the larger trees. They serve as silent guides, bright flashes of saffron against the deep emerald of the jungle. Following them feels less like navigation and more like accepting an invitation. The path rises gently at first. Roots crisscross the ground like the veins of a giant hand, creating natural steps that catch the toe of a boot and provide leverage against the slope. To the left of a sharp bend, the undergrowth pulls back to reveal a limestone nook, sheltered by the overhang of a granite boulder. Here sits the figure I have been looking for. It is not a towering monument, but a small, weathered statue of a guardian lion, carved from stone that has darkened with time. Moss has claimed its paws and mane, softening the edges of the sculpture until it seems to be growing out of the rock itself. I lean in closer. 2 polished pieces of green glass have been set into the stone face, catching the dim morning light filtering through the canopy. The green-eyed guardian stares past me, watching the trail, its gaze fixed on something invisible in the mist. There is no plaque, no explanation, only the quiet authority of the stone and the peculiar, piercing glint of those emerald eyes in the shadows. Leaving the guardian, the trail steepens, and the world narrows down to the immediate rhythm of the ascent. 1 foot finds purchase on a flat stone. The other lifts, swings, and settles on a patch of dry pine needles. The breath adjusts to the effort, finding a cadence that matches the stride. In for 2 steps, out for 2 steps. The surrounding jungle becomes a blur of vertical lines and textured greens, a peripheral tunnel that guides the body forward without demanding attention. There is no need to look up at the peak or look back at the city below. There is only this section of earth, right here. The clay is cool and damp. The sound of movement is muffled by the density of the foliage. A fern brushes against a shin. A dry leaf crunches under a heel. The air grows cooler as the elevation increases, touching the skin with a fine, refreshing mist that is neither rain nor fog, but something in between. The mind empties of destinations. The act of climbing becomes the only reality. Shoulders drop. The hands swing loosely at the sides. Step, breath, step, breath. The repetition is a cradle. It holds the attention in a soft, rhythmic loop. Time stretches out, unmeasured by clocks, marked only by the passing of trees, bamboo thickets that rattle softly in the breeze, dipterocarp trees with leaves the size of dinner plates, ancient vines that spiral up toward the light like wooden snakes. The heart beats a steady drum against the ribs, a private percussion that underscores the silence of the forest. There is no fatigue, only the steady, hydraulic motion of muscles working, propelling the weight up the slope, 1 meter at a time, moving through the tunnel of green and gray. Gradually, a new sound begins to weave itself into the rhythm of the hike. It is a low, constant rushing, like the sound of wind in a seashell, but deeper. The path levels out, and the trees part. Wat Pha Lat does not sit upon the mountain. It rests within it. The temple grounds are bisected by a cascading stream that tumbles over wide, flat boulders. Ancient jetties darkened by centuries of rain, stand guard by the water, their spires pointing toward the canopy. A stone bridge spans the stream, arching over the rushing water. This is the bridge of divided waters. Standing at the exact center, the sensory experience splits in two. To the left, looking upstream, the water crashes over a small precipice, creating a wall of white noise that drowns out all thought. It is chaotic, energetic, and loud. To the right, looking downstream where the water pools and slows, the air is silent. The roar fades instantly, replaced by the stillness of the valley falling away toward the city. I remain on the bridge, suspended between the roar and the silence. A single bronze bell hangs from the eaves of a nearby pavilion. The wind shifts, and the clapper strikes the metal rim. The note is clear and high, cutting through the sound of the water, hanging in the mist for a long moment before it dissolves into the humid air. I lower myself onto a dry section of the stone wall, watching the water move endlessly over the rock, letting the morning light drift through the leaves and settle on the quiet earth. The morning air at the base of the mountain is not simply cold. It holds a distinct, heavy moisture that clings to the skin and dampens the sounds of the waking forest. Fog wraps around the lower slopes in thick, drifting ribbons, obscuring the path ahead and turning the world into a canvas of soft grays and muted greens. From this white haze, the Naga balustrades emerge. The seven-headed serpents, crafted from terracotta and emerald-colored tiles, stretch upward, their bodies forming the handrails for the long ascent. Their scales glisten with the accumulated dew of the night, catching the faint, diffused light that filters down from the canopy above. A quiet stillness settles over the entrance. There are no crowds yet, only the hushed rustle of leaves and the distant, rhythmic sweeping of a monk clearing fallen blossoms from the lower courtyard. The staircase rises steeply, disappearing into the cloud layer, as if leading directly into the sky. The ascent begins. There is a specific cadence to climbing ancient stairs, a rhythm that the body adopts without conscious thought. One foot lifts, finding purchase on the worn stone, and the weight shifts forward. Then the next foot follows. The breath adjusts to match the movement. In as the leg rises, out as the sole presses down. The surroundings blur into a vertical tunnel of green foliage and gray mist. Step after step, the repetitive motion becomes the only reality. The mind empties of plans and memories, leaving only the sensation of the climb. The stone beneath the feet is solid and unyielding. The air grows cooler with every few yards of elevation gained, pressing against the face with a refreshing chill. A bird calls out from somewhere deep in the teak trees, a single, piercing note that hangs for a moment before fading into the damp bark. Then silence returns, filled only by the sound of breathing and the soft scuff of shoes on stone. The staircase seems to lengthen as it is climbed. The Naga scales flow past in a blurred stream of green and gold mosaic. There is no destination in this moment, only the process of moving upward. The muscles in the legs warm with the effort. A steady, comfortable burn that grounds the experience in the physical world. Time stretches and compresses. It might have been minutes or hours since the first step was taken. The white mist thickens, turning the periphery of vision into a soft, blank slate. There is nothing to look at but the next step, the texture of the stone, the faint pattern of moss growing in the crevices. The rhythm continues. Lift, step, breath, lift, step, breath. The outside world falls away entirely, leaving a cocoon of white silence and steady, rhythmic motion. As the final steps approach, the density of the cloud layer begins to thin. The gray brightens to a luminous white, then breaks apart. The summit terrace reveals itself not all at once, but in fragments. An expanse of marble floor, the dark wood of a temple roof, and then the center of it all. The golden pagoda stands in the center of the courtyard, an immense structure of glowing gold leaf that seems to generate its own light. It pierces through the lingering top layer of clouds, the spire vanishing into the blue sky above, while the base remains anchored in the mist. The contrast is sharp and absolute. The gold is warm, brilliant, and solid against the shifting, ephemeral vapor of the clouds. Reflections of the sun, which has just cleared the horizon, dance across the metallic surface, creating a halo of brightness that forces the eyes to narrow. Moving across the marble courtyard requires removing shoes. The stone is cold, sending a sharp, grounding sensation through the soles of the feet. To the side of the main chetty, a gallery of bronze and iron bells hangs in a long, disciplined row. They range from small, chime-like instruments to massive, heavy vessels of dark metal. A wooden mallet rests on a low rack nearby. It is polished smooth by decades of hands. Lifting it feels significant, the wood dense and balanced. The target is one of the large black iron bells near the edge of the terrace. The swing is gentle. The wood meets the metal not with a sharp clang, but with a deep, rounded impact. The sound is a heavy thud that instantly blooms into a low, resonant hum. It is a vibration more than a noise. The tone drops deep into the chest, a sub-bass frequency that travels through the marble floor and up through the legs. It does not ring out, it expands. The air around the bell seems to tremble with the energy of the strike. It is a dark, earthen sound, thick and lingering. The hum sustains itself, hovering in the cold mountain air. It mixes with the scent of burning incense and the damp freshness of the clouds. Slowly, the vibration begins to decay, fading layer by layer until it is just a ghost of a sound, barely distinguishable from the wind. The mallet is placed back on the rack. The hands rest at the sides. The mist swirls around the ankles, cool and silent, as the golden light continues to strengthen, warming the stones and dissolving the last of the morning gray into the brightening day.